our LinkedIn a bit. We haven't focused on YouTube like we thought we were going to when we first started. But I present for our consideration following build up and credibility building. Nothing does it like a Twitter space. I have yet to compare it, except maybe when Clubhouse was at its apex. But gaining followers, and then it's like, we try to do the mass appeal thing too. Now and again, you're like, man, what I wouldn't give to ensure that my 5,000 followers on YouTube were fully engaged. But it's almost like the people that follow you from a Twitter space feel a deeper connection. It's like smaller, but I feel stronger. And I think Allison did phenomenal. I think she was a great. I want to MC just to give her the mic more often, if that makes sense.
Oh, I thought she's an amazing MC.
She was great, but I want
best MCs I've ever heard on Spaces, and that's like.
What'd you say? Say that again.
I think she's one of the best.
Sorry, I just changed mic again. That I've ever heard on Spaces, and I'm not just saying that because it's Allison. Like, I truly believe that the way she was able to, when people would come in the room, she'd be like, "Oh, hey, African art." She just didn't know it was Victor, right? Because Victor, whatever.
Victor was like, "Allison, you know who I am."
And also, Victor just went off about basically not what we were talking about. I'm like, damn it, Victor.
No, I thought knowing Victor, and Victor, if you pop in today, please tell us what you're shilling today. Knowing Victor, I love Victor because his hand is in so many pots, and
he's real, yeah.
And
his
that's
hand's in all the cookie jars.
Well, that's the thing. I said shill, but usually a person shills, they are a shill. That's not Victor. That's not Victor. Victor he shills, but he's not a shill. He's a real one. And so he'll be in. I mean, John Kraske comments on his stuff, and they're going back and forth. And he introduced us to Ezra Igor, whose designs are right here. I mean, he's a real one. He's flipping threads. He's flipping threads. He made a killing on threads. And so he's a real one, but he's got his hand into some weird tokens, man.
Well, he also, like you said, he's not a shill. He does shill. He actually has never flipped me anything, and I followed up that hasn't worked out. Even if it's just in a week, and he's just telling you to buy to sell. So I may take him up one of these days, throw 100 at something, and just see what happens. I think Threads is a good one. Were you guys able to get on the allow list?
No, I didn't have enough time to get on the allow list, but it definitely was a good call from
I think he made out well. I'm super happy for him. I didn't jump in, and then even I tried to remember the date, what I wouldn't give for our Just Alpha, right? Like what I wouldn't give for our app, because I knew it was the 7th, and I thought 3 times that day, I got to go buy it. It's live. I just got to go buy it on OpenSea and get one. And I know it's going to run, and I just never got to it, getting those whitelists. And how do you even, without Discord grinding these days, how do you get on an allow list? I don't grind at all anymore. Do you guys grind for anything anymore?
I haven't, because most of the things, I wasn't deep in the NFT space nearly as much, and like Victor is, but I found that grinding for DeFi, whitelists, just wasn't worth it for the most part this season of the market. And so I haven't. I've just not worth it.
Yeah, I'm so far out of that space, but I think people are still, Victor's doing good. There's people still doing good. And Threads is an interesting project. Did you read the website profile of it?
I didn't go very far. I just kind of knew that I was not going to have the time to do it.
Well, if you visit the website, it's a pure art project. There's no community promises. It's literally a NFT art project, and it is generative. But it was interesting when the artist showed where on their website, they actually pull Professor June, or whatever the name is, or Yoon. They show their artistic journey and previous projects they've done, and where they pulled inspiration from certain tubing projects, and then how they programmed kind of the generative project. So it's not just that they used Mid Journey or something like that and generated a bunch of junk. It is unique. It's a unique piece, or a unique set. I don't know if anything's going to come of it other than what it has been already. We'll see, but it's kind of cool. And then since we're on NFTs, Jarrett, what's going on with Utes? And I hear some of the heat the D gods are getting. What's the heat the D gods are getting? But then they're going into season 3 and things are looking good too. Like, what's going on?
So I haven't actually been keeping up as much with like the specifics of D gods, and I kind of wish we had B Chills on here because I think he could literally lay all this out. He's got 2 D gods now and a Ute or a couple Utes, so he's very much in the D Labs community. I do know that Utes. Well, we can start with Utes. Utes is going over to Ethereum. And there was something weird with them going to Ethereum because apparently when they had gone to Polygon from Solana, Polygon Labs had given D Labs $3 million.
Oh.
And so the fact that they were only on Polygon for less than a year and then basically gave the 3 million, they said they're going to, or they, I'm not sure if they have, but they said they're going to, or maybe they have, give the $3 million back to Polygon. People were like, oh, Frank D. Gods is a scammer. He basically just got a $3 million zero interest loan, whatever. I'm like, whatever. I don't know enough about exactly the specifics to hold any like real opinion. But the thing I will say is that anyone coming into NFTs, if you're trying to make a project and you're not building on Ethereum, I just want to know if you understand what's happened with Utes specifically, because George Pate, I'll take that 3 mil because Utes has started on Solana, then moved to Polygon, and is now moving to Ethereum. It's almost like, why would you start on Solana or Polygon? Just take advantage of the network effect of building on Ethereum from the jump. Now, I know building through Polygon can allow you to have cheaper like prices, transaction fees, and all that. But with Polygon, as we've talked on here with Matic, maybe changing, and like that ecosystem is evolving and doing its own thing. And Ethereum still seems to be kind of more like the bedrock on which you should be building your home. So anyways, I'm interested to see how that like influences people when they come in the next bull run, because in the next bull run, there's going to be someone who's going to create on Solana or whatever, somebody who's not even in Web3 right now, some human being walking around, and they're going to hop on and they're going to be like, oh, let me create on Solana because it's so cheap. Right. And they don't even have this brief history from 2 years before and watched what happened with Utes. Utes should be a case study that I think everyone needs to start and just go with Ethereum. You can be cutesy. You can try to do other things. Like I know Cardano has NFTs, but for right now where the market is, just go with Ethereum. Maybe Cardano and Solana and maybe even Polygon have other like value propositions in the future, but I don't know. I feel like this has been a crazy case study. So that's with Utes, and that's part of D Labs. The other thing that's been going on is Season 3 was launched. At least we were able to see some of the art, and a lot of the idea behind this was basically, and I don't have an image, or I could try to find a link, but a lot of this was to take out like the rusty nails in the head, some of the tattoos, like calm the images down so they could be maybe digested by a more universal audience, not just like degens on Twitter. And a lot of that idea is let's like, really ramp the branding. Can we get, could people actually use these to create brands and IP and all that? And like, how do we explode it more? How do we make it more approachable and fun? Like doodles, less kind of like exclusive and intimidating, which I think D-Gods has always kind of been, in my opinion, like visually. And I'm not exactly sure. I haven't like followed all the tea here, but Frank posted 16 hours ago. He said, unfazed, adjusting, simply refuse to take the L. And then he put up a quote from Miles Davis, excuse me. It says, if you hit a wrong note, it's the next note that you play that determines if it's good or bad. Mm-hmm. So Frank's definitely in his feelings. And if you go through Frank's Twitter, I saw another post that he posted last night, and he was fairly apologetic. And I'm not excited currently about where like his overall demeanor, because it almost is like he knows something that we don't know, which is clearly true, that is maybe not a positive. And he tweeted 18 hours ago, sorry to the D-Gods and Utes community for fumbling this so far. This is the part where everyone says, I told you so, in quotes. I hate this part. I hate disappointing the community. No easy days, processing everything, adjusting approach, not going anywhere. So,
but we don't know what he's talking about.
If you go through the comments, you can kind of suss out, but clearly I think that I think what's happened is they're just delayed on their timelines, and they've already pushed back season 3 a couple of times. And so I think that it's not even that there's anything to be disappointed about, just the complacency of not keeping up with the timelines you've created. You know, if I ask you, Grant, how long is it going to take you to clean your room, and you say 5 minutes and 5 hours has gone by, I'm like, well, you told me it was going to be 5 minutes. You know, you created your own timeline with which you're going to like guillotine yourself with. So I think that they probably haven't hit timelines. And I also think that maybe they're looking at this long term and they really just can't figure out, you know, in 12 months and 24 months where it wants to go. And they're trying to plan for 12 or 24 months, but they don't even know where they're going to be in 3 months. So I do wonder if there are internal struggles that they have. One of the things too about D Labs, and I know I've been talking a while, so I want to pass the mic. One of the things about D Labs that I understand is that they all live in a house in California.
Okay.
You know, where they all code and they create and they're just constantly talking about this and they just live in it. Right. And I think that that can be both a blessing and a curse. Some of the best musical albums we have come when artists and bands have gone literally to like farmhouses or in the middle of nowhere or to private islands to kind of come up with their music, to do it in silo. But I also think if it's done for too long, you know, Rome killed itself from the inside, right? So I wonder if there's, you know, fractions growing within the D Labs community, as maybe, you know, maybe they want it to be, you know, not tempering expectations among a group of people is the easiest way to like watch the thing fizzle. So anyways.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. And we're not just talking about youths, we're talking about D-Gods because we're talking about founders. It would be interesting. And, you know, that made me start to think about, okay, how's the market doing? Well, new projects like Victor or like Professor Yoon's Threads is interesting, but again, there's no community promises. And George Pate says he saw something about Bored Apes getting burned, causing a bad relationship. With whom, to whom, by whom? You mean with Frank D-Gods? Or is there a relationship to that, or are you just talking about internally? Aussie, did you have any...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some bad relationship with Bored Apes, but I mean, Bored Apes have also not been doing well. I feel like the NFT market as a whole for old, what you would consider blue chip projects, hasn't been strong lately.
Yeah, and I would love a transparent conversation, but I would imagine that so much of this hinges on how people are predicting the future and what happens with the floor price then, which determines their treasury, which determines if they have any leveraged positions within DeFi, of how they're operating as a business, you know? So when they go on a podcast, for example, and say, hey, listen, you know, we're artists, we're developers, but what we're not is business-minded executives, and we're trying to fight our way out of a marketing paper bag. We're trying to, like, as a marketer, and I wish we could have Art Malkov on, but as a marketer, like, the marketing is dynamically different. And, you know, Doodle's got a lot of shit for trying to, like, jump the shark, if you will, on trying to say, listen, we're not an NFT project. We're a legit IP project, and you happen to own a piece of it. But we're going to get basically what they were saying during that whole thing, I want to say like 2 months ago, when we first were reading some of these Doodles headlines, that they came under a little bit of flack on their community, but it was only a little bit, where we're not an NFT project, we're an IP project. And setting the tone for, you're not going to hear noise making from us that sounds like NFT world. We are going to talk like ourselves as an IP project, as a studio. And I appreciated that, but not every NFT community can make that, has the internal fortitude to make that shift. So it can be difficult. I was under the impression NFT were a way to keep your memes from getting stolen on 4chan. Gives the ability to claim OC on the internet. OC? Copyright?
Yeah.
Ownership, what's the word I'm looking for? Ownership claim or control, yeah.
Interesting. I was under the impression NFTs were a way to... That's the dream. And you know, I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Like, I think NFT communities drank their own Kool-Aid. That, you know what? let's quit deving. Let's do art in community. And like the innovation for a lot of these blue chip projects, original content gives the ability to claim original content. Yes, that attribution is what me and Jackie have been talking about. The guys here and I've been talking about. So what's your guys' sentiment? Like, I feel like all the real devs have gone underground and all the art blue chips are kind of stuck having to live up to their own hype.
I'm not exactly sure. I think that and I know George is being quasi facetious here.
Yeah.
I take that with a grain of
Right
salt.
click and save, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think the devs have gone underground necessarily, but maybe they have. But something else. So I want to actually bring this up. This is actually fairly big news. Probably the biggest news today in NFTs that I've seen is the. I'll read George Pates and I'll kind of go into this. Just change the subject a little bit, but it does touch upon devs. The old school guys were pissed that original content got stolen over and over. Take Pepe, for example. Yeah, I mean, I think NFTs is a way to basically prove digital ownership over any type of digital asset. So you can use that to protect a meme that you create, for sure, obviously. But you could also use that, as we've seen, for driver's licenses, like they're starting to do in California. You can use non-fungible token technology to do a whole host of things. And honestly, PFPs and where NFTs are today and what we call blue chip are like the tip of the iceberg. They are the VHS of like movies, right? We'll eventually get to something way better, way cleaner, and way easier to like mass adopt. I wanted to shout out, I don't know if you guys saw this, Jalil, who does the deving for Jack Butcher. And I actually met him because he was with Jack at Consensus. He did a smart contract and he put it out for, I'm not exactly sure. It has to do with checks, and I'm not sure how exactly it plays into that ecosystem because that ecosystem grows all the time. But it got compromised and some money got drained from the account. And I'm not exactly sure how much money got drained, but like that is not good. Obviously for Jalil, I'm sure he personally feels like, damn it, The other thing though is it's tying to Jack Butcher. Jack Butcher's one of the biggest individual NFT artists, in my opinion, on the internet. And Jalil says, "Dear all, a bug was found in the Infinity contract I built. It was abused to drain all the funds. I'm taking
all the funds.
I'm taking full responsibility for it. I took down the website just now, investigating exactly what happened. I will find a way to refund every single deposit. Gutted." He goes on to say, this gets into a little more technical parts.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to read too much of it. No, I'm not going to read it. It's a huge thing, but I will. It's on my Twitter and I can tag it here. But anyways, he goes into the code. Like, this is where I messed up. This is how this happened. So that's just a tough day at the office, and unfortunately that's going to probably be hundreds of thousands of dollars maybe. And it could also just totally shake the foundations of people's trust in that project, which is so super unfortunate. And like DGods was 10 ETH not even 3 weeks ago, and it's down to 7.2 for a floor price. Utes was 2 like weeks ago, and now it's at 1.4. So these are undervalued projects right now if you believe in their long-term arc. So
we keep hearing the bad news that keeps causing people to lose faith in, man, an edit in the smart contract is being released and in control of millions. Hey, decentralization, not working so hot.
But that's not decentralization. If anything, that's centralization in one person who wrote a smart contract, and maybe they didn't get it audited.
Yeah,
maybe
that's not
the network is decentralized. That has nothing to do with the one single failure of writing a smart contract that can get compromised.
If a single person writes a single smart contract and no one else verifies that smart contract, you are asked, like, not to make them feel any worse, but you are asking for something like this to happen. There's a reason why people like, you could even have ChatGPT help audit your contracts at this point.
And it's not to say that it wasn't audited, but somebody found a weakness.
My concern is not the infrastructure of decentralization, which you are totally correct, and I agree with the definition of that. I'm talking about the philosophy of decentralization is the inverse. It's radical autonomy. and we're trusting the network. And instead of centralization as a philosophy says, I need to get this audited, I need to have multiple eyes on this, as opposed to, hey, I'm doing my own thing. Let me just deploy this contract because there's almost a paradoxical staunch independence that goes on in the ethos of decentralization, because it feels like the Wild West. I feel like I can do my own thing. I'm not under anyone's guise. And it's like this narrative is killing our ability to sell the idea. You know, Aussie, we were going to talk briefly in our headline today about Aussie is going through something really cool right now where a family member is loaning him money to make investments, not in NFTs necessarily, but to make crypto investments for a decent return in their very conservative approach. But man, if this family member it caught wind, so to speak, of that's how easy it is to lose, it might make them totally skittish. And we know that that's true. And so I guess that's my critique, is just not that you're right, not the infrastructure of decentralization. That's brilliant, but just the attitude. Now we don't know. Maybe Jaleel did have. Maybe this was such an obscure thing. We are not coders. Maybe Jaleel did have it audited. We know Jack Butcher. We know that these people usually do very strong due diligence. So I don't think we should shit on anyone. Should mistake that we're shitting on Jaleel in particular, because I'm not. I get so concerned about these headlines, and like the D Gods, it sounds like a TikTok frat house. In this instance, you know.
Yeah, no, it does. But the thing is, it's all how you sell it, right? Because if you went and you saw SBF and you're like, the reason why SBF is so great is because he's in this house where they're rocking all day.
Yeah.
You sell that on the front end to investors. You're like, yeah, they're so dedicated. They all live together. They work well. Well, guess what? When it goes bad, it's easy to tell a different story really, really quick and change your narrative. So, but Grant, I guess the thing I'll say is I don't think that like writing a poor smart contract has anything to do with the centralization or decentralization. At least I don't see it philosophically. I just think he made an error. And I think that if anything, people are trusting too much in that project to just say, oh, whatever they're doing, because obviously Jack Butcher's tied to it, and most of the things that he does are pristine. Then I trust in them, just like I think there's brands that the three of us trust in, but if we knew the full story, we'd probably be like, but I don't see that aligned with the decentralization, kind of deeper dive that we often get into, which I think is one that needs to be spoken about more. This is the only place where I hear that talked about. Seriously.
I agree.
Spaces, you watch Twitter, no one ever talks about that.
Accountability.
Accountability.
Maybe not regulation. You bring that one out, you're going to get kicked out with Jerome Powell, right? Like regulation. It's like, or Gary Gensler. And it's like, that's not what I mean. I mean like safe practices, where are rubber going into this thing? But again, I don't want to give Jaleel crap. I have a broader concern about, it's just it's like, when are we going to learn a lesson that we've got to start signaling reliable networks? We've got to start signaling, and maybe it's not even a rug pull, but all of our dreams are dashed, that maybe all this money to checks or a project like that is being dedicated to veterans or development work in Colombia or whatever, and now the money's just gone. And it's like, God dang it,
Yeah, I'm interested to follow this particular thread to see where it goes, because I think the way you mea culpa, the way you ask for forgiveness and you ask for continued trust, even when you've broken trust, even when you didn't mean to, right? Jaleel didn't write this so that it would break. He wrote this so it would support Jack Butcher's vision of growing checks to be digital art in the internet that creates a, community, a global community. And I'm really interested to see how they do, because between that project and between Frank D. Gods, they're both hitting some road bumps, and I'm just so interested to see how they pick up and continue forward, because Frank D. Gods has always had this very sarcastic view of leadership. He's like, just blame me, and it's like a huge thing with D Labs and the entire ecosystem. It's like, oh, it's Frank's fault. Oh, we'll blame Frank. He created that very sarcastic, satirical kind of community. But now, when it's actually where he's really taking responsibility and really being accountable, it's like the joke. The best jokes in the world are the ones that hold the most truth. Right, and they make us feel uncomfortable. So I'm very interested to see. Obviously, I have a financial investment. I do believe that as long as they can essentially weather the storm, and any NFT project can be relevant till next March, which is asking a lot because you need 24 hours a day. You need to be twirling plates on your fingers while on top of a unicycle. If you can continue to do that, I think up until the halving and probably into next summer, I just think next summer is going to be crazy. That's my like full stop. And it's exciting because we're 8, 9, 10, 11 months away, to kind of really blasting off. So,
and I'd like to go into this dynamic of what Aussie's encountering. Let me ask a brief question. We do not have to unfold this for the rest of the show. Knowing what we now know, all the encounters you gentlemen have had since last weekend, any viewer watching, is America going to hit a recession or not?
Ooh, I like how we were going not towards talking about Grant.
I just want hot takes.
Hot takes. JP Morgan says we're not going to go into a recession anymore, which I think is a very interesting hot take. My hot take is we probably have a light recession. I am seeing more and more posting about people being laid off. The reality is that and I had this discussion on the 100X podcast, there was a lot of people who are, leaving high skill that are like getting laid off at high skilled jobs, and all the jobs that are being created or that are on offer that are kind of vacant right now are minimum wage service jobs.
I'm telling you, this is the AI interruption.
Don't do.
This is the AI interruption. It's going to start happening. Jared, do you have a hot take at all on this?
Yeah, and sorry, I've been a little distracted. You guys know I'm in the middle of
transitioning.
My brain is pulled in 7 different directions right now.
Yeah.
My hot take is that no one knows. Sure. And we're going to see what happens. I mean, the thing is, here's my hot take. If there is a recession, it will be shallower. No, it will be deeper than that's wrong too. If we do have a recession, it will be over in 6 weeks and we'll start printing money again. And if we don't print money, we'll do the equivalent of printing money. We'll just drop interest rates at a precipitous rate that we shouldn't, right?
Interesting.
I mean, like when the pandemic hit, it was March 15th, the Ides of March, that's when the world kind of stopped, at least in the Western world. And by like mid-May, we were back up and running. And I think by June, we had stimmy checks out. So it was only 2 months of like severe pain. Now, 2 months for most people on the planet who don't have money to get them week over week was really painful, right? It created a lot of uncertainty and people were dying and we were all separated. But sorry to bring back the PTSD of the pandemic. I just think if we do have a recession, I think it will be so short-lived. And if we do go into a recession, they're going to pull us out as quick as possible, especially the Fed's going to just drop rates or they're going to print. Either way, we're going to be right.
I disagree with whether we're going to print or not, especially with the latest CPI numbers.
I like how you said we, Aussie. That was cute.
Yeah. Well, because Canadians do very, very similar things. But CPI in the US came out and it was hot. It was quite.
It was 3.2.
It was quite hot. 3.2. It was 3% year over year last month.
Ooh.
So inflation ticked up by 0.2%, which it hasn't done.
So we're gonna see another interest rate hike.
I would not be surprised. There was already some expectations, about 25% expectations that we see interest rates go up at this next meeting, and they're shifting a little bit. It's now mainly actually predicting for November that we're looking at a 35% chance of a rate hike in November. They think we might hold a pause in September, but
a pause would send a huge message. I mean, that would be significant. George Pate says a use the recession to push CBDC. So do we believe that? Like, even if we see your micro recession there, Jarrett, of 6 weeks, give or take. And, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, depending on who's in government at that moment and what the campaign season is doing, that they just print. Because I believe the narrative, I do also agree with the mechanics of what you're saying, but I often remind myself the realities are marketing realities, not mechanical realities. And the marketing realities are, I believe, that any government in power, not just the current American government, but any governing body at the time, is really trying to decouple the narrative of what's going on with money printing and what's going on with interest rates and what's going. Oh, these are different things, and it's almost like interest rates in recession have to do with one another, but what we're doing with money and printing, modern monetary management policy, or the modern, they try to set a narrative that these things are unrelated. And I think that they tried to prove that with stimmy checks and the pandemic. And I think they're trying to continue to recite this. So I think that it is likely that if we get dinged, they might see, and I think it would be longer than 6 weeks before they print a check. The pandemic hit, and that ran, and they realized ain't nobody spending no money. And they have to go through a cycle enough to see that. So I think my hot take is we will see some degree of recession, but the average consumer won't see it. But I do think it will hit high tech, because I do believe AI will be kind of a jab, right hook on, and we don't see it much. Like, you hear this conversation about AI, and it's like, like everyone at this point has dabbled, and they're kind of done with that now. Like, I do a lot of panels, and you poll the room, and it's like, okay, everyone's touched it. Yeah, how many people used it yesterday? And it's like less than 1/5 of them. And Jackie was saying something similar at an AI symposium she went to. She had a very similar observation. And so it's like, okay, well, this doesn't do that much. And it's like, well, it does a lot in the white collar, high dev world. And I think those people, they'll see a massive disruption. I think the people there will get paid more, but I think there'll be fewer people on the payroll. And I think that shift will hit pretty hard. But then I saw this, and Aussie, you tend to know more about this than I do. I saw a post that said our export numbers were in the toilet, like down 9%. Is that accurate? Have you heard?
GDP numbers were down a little bit, and export numbers were down a bit. It's not. I don't know if it was 9%.
That sounds low.
But the other thing is that the even though export numbers go down, there's often variation related, like month over month and year over year, like quarter over quarter variation that is kind of normal. And so one of the things that often gets discussed is the summer manufacturing law.
What?
The summer manufacturing law. You see, because of vacations and everything in the summer, manufacturing facilities often go from maybe having three shift lines to 2 shift lines in the summer. And so, or something like that. Like they might, sometimes they might run 3, they usually run 3 shifts, but they run 2 shifts during the summer so that people have time off for vacation. They have enough bodies. And so to see even if it's a 9% decrease in exports, it probably is a standard quarter over quarter kind of variation. Okay. And so I wouldn't gawk at that. If we were talking a 25% decrease, or if we were talking about this in the fall, if we were talking about a severe decrease in exports in the fall, when we tend to export a lot of food and other stuffs, and we tend to have some of our better production within the fall, then I would start kind of having some questions.
All right. Okay. Hot takes done. George Pate says this recession will finally bleed big business and upper class, which could, or he says gonna be, and I say, well, maybe it could be a good time to be in the middle for that wealth transfer. That's a great idea there. If it does trickle down and doesn't go offshore, and we'll see about that. I think a lot of money ends up going offshore for sure. Let's talk about A, Aussie safe word, and B, this loan from this family member. So this has been a journey. Like, this has been a conversation that's been going on a while with this family member, yes?
Yeah, it's been something that we've been talking about for a few weeks, at least, maybe even.
And this person's been anti-crypto staunchly.
Yeah, they were pretty staunchly anti-crypto when the discussion first started.
So what changed? What changed? Like, I'm open to it. I'm gonna write a nearly 30,000 Canadian dollar check, right?
I think I think a couple things. I mean, I think the fact that there was an ETF coming out with BlackRock actually made a huge difference. But also just by kind of explaining a bunch of things that we know about crypto that that kind of got them interested.
Okay.
I mean, I talked about micropayments using Bitcoin and how Bitcoin might be kind of the microtransaction network of AI.
Interesting. A
And
microtransaction network of AI on the Lightning Network, right?
yeah, likely on the Lightning network.
Interesting.
And so I was explaining this to them, and then I was also explaining Ethereum and how Ethereum is essentially probably going to be the undercurrent of the internet of the future.
Yeah, the infrastructure. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And so
more and more likely.
And I kind of had that discussion, and I also kind of brought up, hey, like this is some of the abilities that we can have. And like I started talking about, okay, this is kind of our upside potential, this is our downside potential. They're very used to investing in stocks.
Yes.
And so to them, upside downside potential was like something that was super important to them to understand. And so when I was explaining the potential upside and downside potential, it made them a lot more interested in understanding of, okay, well, this is the cycle. I explained the halving, and they started to kind of open up about the idea of investing in cryptocurrencies. And I kind of was like, we're gonna go with the straight, like, I know there's some more risky stuff, but this is kind of the straight conservative play that you can make that could really benefit you in the long term.
So share your portfolio, and Jarrett, I want to hear your comments on his game plan for the money. What's the game plan?
So my game plan is to do 50% into Ethereum and 50% into Bitcoin.
So like you get this check, it hits the deposit, you literally slice it into and fully vested? No dollar cost averaging, you're just going to go to the hilt.
I think I'm going to go to the hill. It's going to be a little bit of a DCA just because of how money transfers work in Canada. We can only move a certain amount at a time. So I'll be able to deposit a decent amount, like probably about 3 tranches. And my thinking is this is probably the best method because we don't necessarily know whether the market's going to go up or down from here. We've been kind of stuck at this point for a while, and we could see like for the last 2 months we've been essentially stuck in this range. And so we could either go up from here or we could go down from here. But as much as I might think there's a chance we go down from here, I would rather get and solidify my position than think about, oh, hey, and it's gone up and now I'm getting less Bitcoin and ETH for the money. And I think that's why I'm going with the plan that I'm going with.
So Jarrett, what's your take?
I think that's the best way to do it. I think that if he's holding the money and DCAing and the price is going up, then I think he'll be freaking out. So what he's basically saying is the chance of the price going up and the stress that would cause him is more than the ability to take advantage of lower prices, the happiness he would get from lower prices, which I think makes sense. And I also think, and that's why I asked you about your term limit, how long until you need to, give some money back, give some principal back with maybe some interest, because the sooner you get the money in the market, at least, the sooner basically the clock starts going and you get closer to long-term capital gains as opposed to short-term capital gains. So getting money into the market as quick as you can, I don't think is ever a bad thing. And I think DCAing could also be a very logical thing if you are scared about it going up or down, because then you're still going to get ideally, a pick of all the pieces as it goes up and down. But I think for your particular thing, just get it in Bitcoin, get it in Ethereum, split it. And I think you're still at a really good price point before we do whatever we're about to do over the next 16 to 24 months.
Yeah, I mean, my explanation to my family member was, hey, I think Bitcoin will be at $140,000 by December of 2025. That's
Is that the
my
Kathy
prediction.
Woods prediction? Is that kind of what you're seeing, or just your own math?
This is kind of this is my own looking at how previous kind of how movements of where we've gone. Last cycle we did about an 18.5x from top to bottom, and considering the law of diminishing returns, this would 140,000 would put us at a 9.25x. So essentially diminishing returns by 50% from previous cycle, and that would put us at about 140,000. To me, that's
December of
fair
January,
number.
December of 2025. Excuse me.
Yeah, December.
And that's what you're thinking is going to be the height of the next bull run.
That's my prediction of the height of the next
in
bull.
price and in timing.
Okay. Yes, right now that's my prediction in terms of price.
Not financial advice, we know, to everyone out there.
Yeah.
Question on this though. So, what is your brewing exit strategy?
My exit
Yeah,
strategy?
we're talking about the height of the market, and that's what it's worth. That's super cute, and everyone loves that number. But what if you kept riding that pony? Because that's the height of the market, and we know what the bear markets do. So the bear market will pull it back to 60K, 70K, and everyone.
I think the bear market would pull it back to 42. That's my prediction.
And so they got in at roughly 28, and they only wrote it in their mind at that point to 42. So they have that disappointment. So do you have a plan to take profits at all? Like what's your...
Yeah, my take profit strategy is to take profits towards the top of the bull market. I don't necessarily think I'll be able to exactly hit the top of the market because no one can exactly time the market. But I'm assuming that I'll be able to get an exit probably within 5 to 10% of the top of the market.
Good on you. And are you going to try to liquidate the original investment and keep vested after that? Or are you going to try to liquidate full position?
I'm liquidating everything.
Interesting.
So because of how the terms of the agreement are, I'm liquidating everything.
The terms of the agreement. That makes sense. And
the terms of the agreement is to liquidate everything, try to liquidate everything at the top of the market. And essentially because we also have the cycles, and my prediction is likely that the bottom of the market for Bitcoin in the next cycle, if things move the way that I'm expecting, is somewhere around 42,000.
Got it.
That's essentially a 70% pullback from an 140K top. We've been pulling back slightly more market over market, but I'm going to assume that we're going to pull back. That's about a 70% pullback from my estimated all-time high. And so from there, I can use what my share will be from that loan. The loan is essentially for this bull market with a little bit of extra basically leeway time in case my timing is slightly off.
Was there any discussion that had to be had on wouldn't this money be better invested in a piece of real estate?
No, because both of us don't have experience holding real estate in our portfolio outside of primary outside of a primary residence. We also don't really the real estate market around here is pretty difficult, so 30,000 would not get us into a strong rental property. Likely we'd have to be in a little bit of a suburb, and given the timing of only holding for about 3 years essentially, we didn't feel like that the returns just would be eaten by the opportunity costs of real estate.
And what is the nature of your agreement should there be no bull run?
Sheesh.
Sheesh.
No, that's a fair question. If there is no bull run, if Bitcoin doesn't go up, or like if it stays flat, then at the end of the term, I return I return the money, and I'll pay some interest out of my own pocket. but
get that earning capacity up, brother. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the
Yeah,
goal.
man.
That's the goal. But yeah, essentially, this was kind of an opportunity for me, because if you think about any loan from a bank, you're talking about having to make monthly payments.
Of course.
And that therefore reduces my ability to invest throughout the short term. So this essentially provides me that opportunity without having the monthly payment. So I'll be able to build my own portfolio at the same time alongside the access to this loan.
Allison jumps in and says, George Pate, not sure I agree with your comment that the recession will bleed the big business and upper class and then make money available to the middle class. She said, I would love this to be true, but history does not show us that big business and upper classes are significantly impacted or at the same level as the lower class. I do agree with that. I do think the middle upper class will get negatively affected, especially in these white-collar jobs, specifically because of AI job disruption. I think that is what will cause the recession. I don't think big businesses will really take a huge hit. Jarrett, what do you think?
Yeah, we've never seen anything trickle down in American history since I've been alive, so I don't see that happening, and I don't. The biggest transfer of wealth that's going to happen is going to go from the boomers to millennials, Gen Z, and Gen X, which is going to take place. It's taking place now and is going to continue to happen over the next 15 to 20 years. But most of that is not going to lift up people out of poverty into the middle class or lift people from the middle class into the upper elite. I mean, 1% of 1% of the wealth is controlled. 99% of the wealth is controlled by 1%. I don't really see that that's going to change drastically with any recession, to be honest, because in recessions, those that own things do better. And in recessions, those that don't own things don't do better. And if you don't own anything and you're in a recession and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not running out to buy stocks because you probably never did it because you don't own anything then to be able to cushion yourself. So it's just kind of this brutal cycle. And then those that do have money continue to get assets on sale. And that rinse, wash, and repeat that happens now every whatever how many years. That's how you get this freakish wealth gap that we have in the United States. So I don't see that, but maybe George is referring to something else because the middle class of the United States is dying a very slow death. The costs are increasing and their wages have been stagnant since the mid 70s. So I don't see exactly, but maybe George also brought up the idea of CBDCs. He said they're using the recession to push CBDC. He wants to hear about that. I don't see that happening either, but I don't know. I mean, every citizen would need a way to hold CBDCs. And I don't see half of the United States Republicans running out and downloading something that Washington says they need to download, even if they can get money. I do not see that happening. There's still many parts of this country that don't even have 100 down, 25 up, or maybe I'm confusing that. Their broadband is still so subpar that it doesn't matter. That they're still trying to get internet, never mind have digital money on the internet that's government controlled. So this fear of CBDCs, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion as well. And I wish George was actually able to hop on, but I'm not as fearful of it as others. I do think if it does happen and the government can control what you own and buy and do all that, and there's a social credit system, but I think we're so far away from where China is because of our independent nature, because we have a state system, and because it's just, I think it's going to be too tough. I think it's going to be too politicized. And I think less than half the country would ever even think that that's a good idea.
I know that every time I look at a property in North Carolina, one of the questions I have to ask is it facing a satellite path for consistent internet?
Geesh.
And the answer is a whopping, oh, no. So you go up there and you have to be present. Like in Florida, or places like flatland areas that I've looked, it's kind of easy. You look at the property online, you run the numbers, and you're like, okay, I probably need to scope the neighborhood and some history, decide if this is going to be a good investment, and then I do my comparables on Airbnb. With property in mountain states like Appalachia, And it's not just mountains, because seems like Boulder, Colorado is pretty darn connected. And that's the Rockies. It is demographics and socioeconomic factors of being in places like Appalachia, where you're looking at property and you go, I have to go down there and see if I can bring up Netflix on my cell phone. And if not, then you have to ask, well, how do I get internet? And they're like, well, we'll put a satellite dish in here that points to our big thing. And maybe we need to get Roger Williams on here to talk about Li-Fi or something, but it's still, you're right, it's still a big problem. And for them to say, hey, maybe the law comes out and says, okay, you got 10 years but in 10 years, you'll be required, and businesses will have a benchmark of 2.5 years out. You have to start accepting CBDCs. 5 years out, you're not allowed to take cash. 10 years out, some gobbledygook. But there's going to be some gun-toting Second Amendment Americans who are like, take my cash from my cold, dead hands, to quote Charlton Heston or whatever.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
And Grant, I think you brought up a really good point. I never thought about that, but like the government can't roll anything out quickly. You know, the government wants to be green, and they're like, yeah, by 2040, maybe we'll cut emissions. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if we're still around. And so if they ever do roll out a CBDC, it's going to take some time. You're going to know about it. Businesses are going to be warned first. You're not going to be able to basically re-up your business in any state without proving that you have that account set up. And then, citizens will be 10 years down the line. If you think about all the people in New York City, all the people in San Francisco, all the people in Miami, all the people in Austin, take all the major metropolitan areas in the United States, Los Angeles, Philly, Boston, whatever you want to say. And you think about all of the people that are surround themselves by tech, are interested by tech. We're talking millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people. Many of them are our friends. I'm not talking about Web3 and Web2 divisions when I make this comment. Many of my friends live on the internet. Many of my friends work remotely. Out of all of those people, I would say maybe 5% have crypto. So the adoption to crypto is only maybe at 5% of those people that are savvy, that have really good internet, that probably are, have financial means or live around places where they're like on the up. And only 5% of them are even interested by this digital cash thing. There's no way the government's going to come out and make something sexy overnight. So like from an adoption standpoint, it's really hard for me to like wrap my head around.
But, we talked about WorldCoin yesterday on Allison's beautiful Twitter space. Go follow Allison A Metaverse anywhere you can find her. She's been phenomenal, and she's been a fun friend out of the UK. We were talking and deliberating pros and cons of WorldCoin, Sam Altman, and specifically to your point here, the government can't do anything sexy. Well, what happened to NASA?
You think my tractor's sexy?
The fuck you talking about?
Well, we just got Aussie's safe phrase.
My tractor's sexy. Stop it. My tractor's sexy.
My tractor's sexy.
There's the safe word from Aussie. But like NASA was, $4 billion a space flight, and we can't do it anymore. And let's force this into the private hands. We deliberated, and we don't have to open up necessarily WorldCoin. To me, the appeal that a private company is looking at now, potentially biometric data and digital ID. Why? Because the government's ability to actually organize their shit, because they don't have the economic incentives to do it. They have the power incentives to do it, but they don't have the economic business model to do it. So we know plenty of private companies in the Web3 space trying to be the first to the finish line on a really good global ID, ZK-proof system. And so here comes Sam Altman and OpenAI, and they've got like a war chest now from all of their work with ChatGPT, very minimal overhead. Why don't we just throw money and try to solve this? And I think, and I didn't mention this on the space, but I think they are literally following the SpaceX Elon roadmap of, if I can nail this, I can get government contracts to basically run the USID system. And so it's like, how do we afford universal basic income? Because the level of contracts that the billies that are going to get printed to this company, just like we're doing with SpaceX Cargo with the CIA and all the government contracts there, I think they're running the same playbook. So to the point of CBDCs, I think it's going to get folded into a private company's efforts that make it look sexy. You made a great point. They can't make it look sexy. What's that thought? I triggered something in you.
Yeah, I mean, I completely
PayPal.
agree with everything you're saying, and I think that that's always been Sam said multiple times. I mean, his thing is he wants to work with local governments. He wants to essentially liaise with the governments. What he's saying is exact reading between the lines. He's saying, no, you know what I want? I want those private contracts because that's where the juice is. And if you could, there's only one company in my mind that sticks out that can do this, and that's Circle. And I've just put in the chat if you could
Really?
bring that up. And if you want to screen share this just to give people an idea, and I can
Oh,
kind
I'll
of
bring
walk
it up. I'll
through.
bring it up. Hang on.
Yeah, I can kind of walk through some of this, but this is Jeremy Allaire speaking, and I was able to meet him at Consensus, and I was invited to the private Circle dinner that night, and it was like crazy to be in the room with this guy who I think has the best framework and he's done the best work, his team, for the digital dollar. So this is on my Twitter. You can go find it
From
there. I
Pomp.
shared it. It was from Pomp, but what he talks about, the way his narrative is in this video, and I invite everyone to go find this. It's on my Twitter. It's also on I just shared it from Anthony Pompliano, but it's Jeremy Allaire from Circle. The way that he talks about the narrative and the need for a digital dollar is the way everyone should be talking about crypto to lay people.
Interesting.
Please go watch this video. I watched it this morning and it was like amazing. I also just think Circle's super class, and a lot of the pictures are from Boston because they're actually out of Boston. They have roots directly to MIT. So anyway,
do you have any stake in Circle?
I used to have Circle. I used to have a bunch of Circle because I had it in BlockFi and I was getting 8.5% APY, but that's locked up now. So I don't know when I'm going to get my BlockFi money back. Hopefully, as long as I get it back, I don't care when, because I wasn't going to sell it anyways. But I definitely am just a huge proponent of Circle. Circle also on.
But you're not going to use your Circle to buy Bitcoin?
I'm going to use my Circle to buy PayPal to invest the PayPal coin. No, but I think Circle is also doing really great things. They are using Circle over the Stellar network to basically have no network fees and allow people to use MoneyGram to basically send remittances around the world for free using Circle. That's a really fascinating thing that they've kind of partnered with Stellar. So they do have a very not just profit minded, they're probably have a triple bottom line of people, profit, and planet. So anyways, I can't shout out Circle enough. I just think that they're a wonderful team, and I would check that out. It's on my Twitter. It's on Anthony Pompliano's Twitter, and you guys should watch it. It's about 2.5 minutes, but it's like a perfect promo for how we need to be talking about crypto. No jargon. We're trying to solve real world problems. And one of the things that he really hits on is something that David All hit on recently on More Than Blockchain, which is like, we as people in the United States need to think about this from a competitive issue. And if we're not staying competitive, we're falling behind. And that's kind of what Jeremy
I agree with that.
Posits. He says, is it going to be the digital euro that's going to be the internet money? Is it going to be the digital yuan? We're hoping it's the digital dollar, and here's why. So yeah, it's fascinating.
That's interesting. I have not looked in depth at Circle. Correct me if I'm wrong. Were they caught up in any losses from the SBF fallout?
They didn't lose from SBF. They had some issues related to the bank crisis, but it essentially seemed to have been resolved. They from what I understand, they managed to regain all of their money from that from the bank issues. So I think that's not they haven't had been touched in that way. I just think it's interesting because PayPal has already rolled out a CBDC essentially.
I didn't think it came out till September, but yes.
No, PayPal CBDC is available.
It's a stable coin. We shouldn't call it a CBDC because it's not not from the central bank.
Like where do you see it available? Like where can I acquire it?
Aussie
on PayPal.
I can buy it on PayPal. I tried. On Venmo or PayPal?
PayPal.
PayPal. Not
Venmo wouldn't have it.
PayPal.
Why not?
Because they're a different company.
PayPal owns Venmo.
They're subsidiary, technically.
PayPal does own Venmo. Oh, then maybe you get on Venmo. I also just don't know why we would want it over just having dollars. I still don't see the
oh yeah,
for someone that is on the dollar. I mean, I get it
for banks, if they could, like, this is what I think has been going on. I think banks have been holding out, and it's tough for a local credit union to just show up and go, I got a local credit union stable coin. Check it out. Really, what it works like for any non-crypto token, like PayPal USD, it works like a CD. You're locking up cash there, and they have huge amounts of liquidity, and you're like, I've got their thing. So it's really a branding thing. So when I think about PayPal, I do think it's a brilliant move because they have way more USD cash reserves available to them. Now they're promising a 1-for-1 treasury. So that means they're not playing funny books, but they can earn interest. They can earn interest on that USD.
4 to 5%
say?
right now from they can earn for 4 to 5%.
That's my point. And at the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars of, hey, hold my PYUSD. In fact, I'll incent it at 0.5%, 1% for you to hold it. I'll stake it. Why? Because I'm making 4.25 at the institutional level. Bring it, son, all day long. So I think you're right, Jared. I think there is no sane reason. I mean, I can send you guys cash right now through Venmo and it hits you. It's cash.
Aussie, do you have Venmo? Do you guys have Venmo in Canada? I just don't know.
We have it, apparently. I didn't know we did. I didn't think it was something that we had around, but we do have it, but I've never used it in Canada. I don't hear people in Canada talk about it. It's not like a thing we use because we have Interact e-transfers, which are essentially very quick ways to send each other money through our banks already. Although there's limits, like you can only send like $5,000 in a day and so much in a month, but you generally it's generally a liquid enough system that you can pay your friends and not have to worry about it.
You know what you don't have up in Canada? You don't have Canadian news. Have you seen this? We can open this up another day, but Girl in the Verse was big on Trudeau's bill that just came out that Google and Meta have to pay when news anchor links are posted on their platforms. So apparently, Meta has already nixed Canadian news links and Canadian news posting on its entire platform, and Google's about to do the same thing. Yeah. And so...
Well, I've seen it on Facebook and Meta already.
Yeah, buddy.
Wait, what? Explain this to
Canadian
me so I understand.
News.
So if you're on Facebook in Canada, there's just no local news.
Correct.
There's no local news links. Yeah, local news links. That is correct.
Man. We'll save that for another day. We're at the top of the hour, boys. I know I meant to bring it up earlier, but I saw your name tag, decentralized news. You need to just start with Canadian news, and you would still cover a whole new market. Guys, this has been quite educational. Let's go around. Jared, I will absolutely check out this Pomp article for sure. I really appreciate that. Aussie, keep us updated on this family investment. I mean, I think the average person wants to know, how people are putting these deals together and how's it going?
Yeah, I mean, I'll even give everybody a little bit of what our terms and conditions are. I'm splitting, so essentially family members getting their initial back, and then also any capital gains that I'll have to pay are taken into consideration out of the potential profit, and then anything on top of that is split 50-50.
Sure.
And
pretty standard.
So,
that's good.
It's pretty fair deal, and so essentially it's giving me access. If we think about the 4 to 5 to 5x, probably somewhere around 1 to 2x worth of liquidity, and which essentially, if numbers work out, would be somewhere around that 1 Bitcoin worth of additional liquidity before the end of by the end of the next cycle.
Nice. So. Good stuff. Guys, any shout outs before we bail? All right. No.
Not really.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. This is the Not Crypto Bros. Check us out in permissionless. We still have to release our appearances where we're going to be. But check us out next Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. right here. Thanks so much, everybody.